Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we tap into our hoppy place and explore a pair of Hopfenweisse. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us.
Yeah, it's oppressively hot. It's oppressively hot. You'll notice if you're watching the video, I'm outside.
Tori's outside.
The beers that we're drinking today, I felt like they were definitely good, like beer garden, like outside beers. And because it was so oppressively hot, I was like, why am I going to sit in my room where I record, where it is basically an oven? I was like, I'm going to take the beers out to the natural habitat where they should be, and I'm going to go sit outside in my beer garden.
Way.
Yeah, so I'm in my garden. So Phelan may or may not jump in.
That's all right.
I don't know.
She can come in. She's been trying to be third podcast host for a while now.
She is, but she's like so inconsistent that she's just rubbish. But yeah, I can't control what happens around me. This is a live setting, so hopefully it all goes all right, because it's much nicer sitting out here. So yeah, if you notice like a change in scenery if you're watching the video, it's probably because someone started doing their lawn again or something, and I had to go inside because the audio quality. Sorry, Rob, it's not going to be the best sound today, but yeah, I'm excited to drink these beers today.
Have you had a Hopfenweisse before?
I hadn't
You've not
at
had
all.
one before.
No.
So I hadn't heard of them at all until a few months back. And when I say a few months, it was probably before Christmas. So it's currently the very end of July as we are recording this, 2021. I think Cloudwater did one before Christmas.
They did I don't know if it was a Hopfenweisse. It was a double. It was something similar.
Yeah, no, it was a double Hopfenweisse.
Hopfenweisse, yeah.
I was like, I don't know what a Hopfenweisse is. I didn't clock on to the double until I started drinking it. I was like, oh, it was like a dipper Hopfenweisse, dipper Weiss.
I thought it was something slightly different because I got that one and I drank it. And around the same time that I sort of saw a few others. So up until recently, like when I say no, I hadn't heard of it before, I meant no, I haven't heard of it much before the last few months. Because I had that one as well. I liked it.
I thought it was interesting. The alcohol level was just a little bit too much for me, but that's not a surprise as it was a double. But yeah, I thought the concept was really interesting. So we found another one. And I've got some things to say about this. So we've got basically Tori bought us both a Nacken. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Nacken. That's I think it's pronounced as Nacken. It's an Omnipolo Siren collaboration. I got us this. I'll go into it a bit when we actually drink it. But I got it for us, a few months back.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking, like, I really like the artwork on it. Again, tell you more about that after. But really like the artwork. Obviously, I just happened to be going sort of down to Siren for it, and I saw that this was being released, and I was like, oh, it's Omnipolo as well, so it's going to be really interesting. So I got us them a few months back, and we were like, oh, Hopfenweisse.
Oh, we should do something on that. And
do something.
When we were in Anne's Batch and Hob Day on the Bermondsey Beer Mile, we happened to come across this one from Schneider Weisse. Now, it turns out that this is the original. And I'll tell you about that in a minute when we get into it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this is, and actually, a Hopfenweisse, as a style, has only been around since 2008.
Oh.
So it is, in the grand scheme of beer, it's brand new.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
More new than not, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a bit about that in a minute. Do you want to crack the beer first?
I really, really do, because it is warm. I've had a day. I've got my Joe came to visit, as we said, like over weekend, and I have got my Vault City tie-dye birthday shirt on. If you're watching the video, so I was very proud to wear that, stood outside in the sun, and crack open a beer. So I'm going to do that now.
So I've got my Weiss beer vase glass to pop this in, so we see how it goes. So for those not watching the video, this glass is very, very tall. It's almost as tall as the bottle, which is 500 ml, and it is smaller at the bottom so that you can hold it. Then it curves up like a vase, and the curve at the top is there to capture what should be a big frothy head. So, oh yeah, Tori's got hers as well.
I've got one as well.
She's got a magic hat
You
one,
didn't.
though.
You didn't think that I was
didn't think you
prepared.
had
I am
one.
prepared.
Well done.
Yeah, and it's a Hocus Pocus, which was a wheat beer.
So, has yours come from America?
It has indeed. It came directly from Magic Hat in Vermont before the Vermont location closed down. I want to say earlier this year or end of last year, because they've got their location in Vermont and they had a location in New York. And I think the main operation was New York, so they shut down Vermont. From my understanding, I don't know, but I used to drink Magic Hat all the time.
Yeah.
Wheat beers were my absolute jam, so I got this glass.
Got the glass. Guess where mine came from?
Did yours come from Alaska?
No. It came from Bermuda.
That's random.
I know. It's really random. So it's from a brew pub in the dockyards, the Royal Navy dockyards in Bermuda, called the Frog and Onion Brew Pub. And Dockyard Brew Co is in this brew pub, and they make excellent beers. And their wheat beer is really gorgeous, and you can buy their glasses. So I spent many a time drinking very large beers while we were in Bermuda, trying to hide away from the heat in the Frog and Onion Brew Pub. So I had to have a glass to come home.
Of course.
Yes.
I like mine because mine's got this like swirly pattern on it. It's one of my favourite glasses, so I don't use it much because I'm afraid to break it.
Well, this is the same. I've just got this out of the fancy glass cabinet, which is in the living room, because of the memories behind this glass, I don't use it. But I was like, oh, it's my only wheat beer glass, so it needed to come out, have a little scrub, and it's ready to be christened.
This one's got memories for me because I went and I did the Magic Hat tour,
the
brewery tour with my sisters and my mum. Fun. But I was underage at the time.
Oh, you've told me this story. Yeah, this is sad.
And but they did let me in, and they let me do the brewery tour, and they said, but not, you just can't have any drinks. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then my sisters just kept being like, here. And my mum was like mortified. She was like, stop it, you're gonna get caught. Like, my mum is just the most law-abiding citizen. Like, I don't think she's ever had like a cigarette in her life, like none of that. So nothing. She just doesn't do that kind of stuff. So she was just like wanted to melt into the floor. Like, what if we get caught? Like, that's where I get that from, of like being like, oh, I can't sneak this extra thing into Ascot with me because what if I get caught? But my sisters just kept giving me more beers, and then they were like, don't worry, we'll get some to take home to I think my mum had won some thing away that happened to be in Vermont, like a place. So she's like, I'll take my daughters away, we'll go away. And we're like, what's there to do in this random part of Vermont? It wasn't summer even, I don't think. So we're like, oh, what are we gonna do? And we're like, there's a brewery, we go to Magic Hat. Like, yes,
there's always a brewery. We were saying this the other day, weren't we? There's always a brewery.
Always a brewery. Oh, I'm not going to use that glass though. I am going to use for this one because I can't put my Siren in this glass, so it's going to have to be this one. It's a Camden Town brewery beer glass.
Dear.
I can't put it on the Polo Siren collab in this.
No. I love that beer glassware and beers have like really fun memories attached to them for people.
Yeah, I feel like we'll just have to do like I feel like we should just have like one episode where we just reminisce on all of our beer memories.
Yeah, we should just pick beers that have a great memory and discuss those. I think that'd be really fun.
It's really difficult for me though, because most of them are going to come from the US. It's going to be incredibly difficult for me to get them.
So am I.
but not the ones that it's like, oh, Trillium and like those really great. Or I could just use the Bud Light that Gordon so generously sent to me. Yeah, so memories attached to that.
So my husband, when I went to visit Tori the other day, I was packing up some beers.
By my Instagram name.
No.
I thought you were just gonna Instagram handle me.
And I was packing up a box of beers because we swap beers, and I was packing up beers, and my husband was like, "Shall I sneak a San Miguel in there?" I was like, "I mean, if you want to, I can tell Tori it's your gift." And he was like, "No, it'd be better. I'll put a Bud Light in there." So he gifted a Bud Light to Tori.
It was, I appreciated it. It's gone right in with the rest of my beer collection. He's waiting for the review to come out. So
yeah, he wants to know what you think about it. He wants your full tasting notes.
Watch this space. It will be on our memories episode.
So my husband, the comedian, everybody. Right, on that note, let's get
into
into this beer. Let's get into this beer. Oh.
And then you need to teach me, because I know that there's some interesting things you've learned about it.
Yeah, I have learned some interesting things.
That was either a really shit pour or it's very lively.
No, it's supposed to. Oh, that's a very big head. That's too big.
Oh,
it's supposed really to nice, have like a massive head.
I'm going to blame the glass. I think it's the glass.
Yeah, look at that. Right, so mine's got a good 3-inch head on it.
Mine's got a 5. Mine's got a good 50% of the glass, at least 70, 75 maybe. I'm working on it. Give me a break. I'm blaming the glass for it. I'm going to say it was just the glass's fault.
It's nice, like a nice whipped cream head.
I mean, yeah, that's the problem, because now that I've got so much of it, it's really difficult to get rid of it.
You're the one that works at beer festivals, for goodness sake.
Pour out of a tap. So don't open bottles for people.
We're just waiting for Tori to pour a beer.
I think I've saved it slightly. I've saved it a bit.
That looks okay.
Ooh. Right. For a minute I thought there was some sediment in it, but it's not. It's just the.
No, it's hazy.
No, but it's just a lot of the there's carbonation bubbles going.
Oh yeah,
friggin' manic at the bottom.
There's different sized carbonation bubbles. There's big fat ones, and then there's some lovely streaming little ones.
Which is why really I thought oh, is there some sediment in there? What's going on? But then I realised I think it's bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is. Look at that head, that whipped cream head.
Gorgeous.
It's firm. That's firm.
Yep, firm. Shouldn't go anywhere. Which it should be, because it is a Weisse beer. In essence. Right, so do you want to know where this has come from?
Yeah, I do.
Right, so as I said, a Hopfenweisse is a relatively new style created in 2008. So let's say a little bit about beer styles. So the Belgians don't believe in beer styles. They just believe in making beer that you want to drink. But in America, probably over here as well, we like nice little neat boxes that we can put our beers into, so we know what they should taste like from a judging perspective, what they should taste like, what they should look like, and then brewers can brew to those guidelines or not, as the case may be with a Hopfenweisse. They can be based around a city or a region, like a London Porter or a Berliner Weisse. It's sometimes based on traditions that are shared by groups of brewers, like abbey beers, and often it's based around the development of particular ingredients, and they are discovered and then become prominent, like your West Coast IPA because of those Pacific Northwest hops, or your Belgian wit beer where they add orange peel and coriander, so that became very traditional in that area. We categorize beers in this way, but then sometimes brewers go a little bit off piste and decide to have an experiment and see what happens. This gives us some really exciting beers. So if you think about things that are probably a bit more air quotes experimental, a New England IPA is technically probably more experimental than it used to be. But they only appeared in the 2010s, so they're actually even younger than a Hopfenweisse, only by a couple of years. But and when you've got things like a white IPA, which is inspired by your Belgian wit beers, you've got your black IPA, which was a mixture of roastiness and hoppiness. These things have come out of brewers experimenting and seeing, well, if I chuck these bits together, what happens?
White stouts,
weird reverse stouts, all of that stuff comes out of people trying to experiment, and not going, well, beer should taste like beer. Beer's going to taste like what I want to experiment with. So, Schneider, who are a German wheat beer brewer, they've been brewing since 1872.
Oh,
Schneider and Son. But they met with, so their head brewer at the time, in 2008, or round about that time, was Hans-Peter Drexler. And he met with a certain brewer called Garrett Oliver, who is quite famous and is from Brooklyn Brewery. So they met together. They wanted to do a collaboration beer, but they decided that they wanted to fuse kind of the two things that they were interested in and they were really good at. So Schneider's really famous for doing their Weisse beers, their wheat beers, and Garrett Oliver being an American brewer, very interested in hops. Your regular wheat beer or German Weisse beer or Hefeweizen as well don't really have much of a hop character. The flavors coming and the aromas coming from those beers are going to come from the yeast, and you're going to be looking for banana, esters, so fruitiness. You're going to be looking for clove, phenols in spiciness. So you don't really get a lot of hop. So then they decided to combine hops with a Weisse beer, and that came into a Hopfenweisse. So they tried it out. It was quite good. The first one was brewed in Germany. Then they decided to, tweak it a bit more, started brewing it in America, and it has now come down to being an actual style. Still not listed on the BJCP website.
I tend to find BJCP is very, very strict.
Exactly. That's really your little boxes. So it's still essentially an experimental beer style. But quite interesting in that when we're going to taste it, we should be looking for a balance between those banana and clove notes that you get from a wheat beer and some fruitiness from the hops. It is going to be more bitter than a usual wheat beer because of those additions of hops, but it should be well balanced. This one is actually considered a Weizen Doppelbock. So you're going to get more. So a Doppelbock is a higher alcohol beer, but in your box, you're getting bready malt flavors. So there may be a bit of that in there as well. So it's going to be, because of the hops and these combinations, it's not going to be as dry. There will be a bit of sweetness to it. There's going to be more bitterness. It should be an interesting balance. Shall we get into it?
Yes. Cool. I've got yeast in here as well.
I've got yeast in here as well. I didn't carefully pour.
It's all right, though. Fine.
Right, though.
It's just a bit of yeast.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt anyone. So I already had a sip of it. I kind of cheated. So I'll wait for you to get your sips in.
I'm definitely getting that banana and clove.
Yeah, so I definitely got the clove, but I think in the smell, I am quite heavily getting like a pear or an apple in there as well, like the fruitiness of that.
I'm getting like sticky marmalade. Like it's got a really sticky smell.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by that.
Maybe a bit of pineapple.
Yeah, because I don't
pineapple.
think that for me, the banana doesn't come through as much in the smell.
Okay.
The clove does a bit, and the fruitiness does. But the fruitiness for me is like a lighter, sweeter apple, pear, that type of fruit. I can see the pineapple. Like I can definitely get like the pineapple element to it. Now that you say it, and I don't know if it's because you said that and you've put that in my head. But yeah, definitely.
I'm also underlying it. I'm getting like a bit of bread dough, which is lighter than I expected.
I can see that.
Right, I'm going in.
I already went in several times. It's very good. But with that, so you were saying it's got like the higher level of the bitterness, but I still wouldn't say that it's particularly high bitter, at least not for my taste buds. It's not particularly high bitter.
No.
It might be more bitter than sort of what's normal, but I wouldn't say that
this isn't West Coast levels.
No, and I wouldn't even say that. I think even for some beers, where even when it's not West Coast levels, the bitterness can sometimes just be a bit higher than what I enjoy for that flavour combination. But I think it's for me, it's quite subtle here with all the other flavours happening.
Yeah.
I get the spice to it. That comes in for me, and I get a lot of maltiness in it, which I quite like.
Yeah, it's quite rich, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like I'm just keep thinking like sticky fruit juice and
I think marmalade was the good
marmalade. Yeah, it's definitely like, and it's not it's caramelized sugar, but not the sweetness from it. It's the sticky, like I think like, you know, maybe a bit of burnt marmalade.
I would say like for me, caramel apple.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes like apple's used in like a negative like way of if it's appley, it's not necessarily the gross. But I know sometimes when people use that, there can be that negative connotation for it. But I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It just has that light fruitiness of like a nice, I don't know, maybe like a bit of a green apple or something like that, which can be a bit of bitterness to it maybe, but it's like, I don't know, caramel apple for me. That's it.
I get a lot of orange.
My head.
I get a lot of orange.
Oh, the smell of like breadiness now that you've said like now that you've said dough, it really goes in there. It's
drier than I expected, but there's still like there's a bitterness, like a light bitterness, and there's an orange juice linger for me.
I can get orange juice in it. Like the more I drank it, I think the first few sips I didn't really get the orange juice in it, or not orange juice, but the orange element to it. But the more I've drank of it now, the more I'm like, oh, okay, actually I can kind of, it gets stronger as it goes, I think. I think it also tastes like boozier. So what's the ABV on this?
It's 8.5. Am I making that up?
8.2.
8.2. Yeah, so it's a big one.
Yeah.
Like wheat beers tend to be quite low. So this is a big boy.
Because that's what I had in my mind with like wheat beer. I was thinking it's probably not that high, especially for all these like more traditionally looking bottle ones. They're not normally that high ABV.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't look at the ABV until just now. And I was about to say, oh, it's quite like it has quite a boozy taste.
It's got a bit of a warmth to it, yeah.
But then once we've sort of uncovered that it's 8.2, I was like, oh, it's not that.
That
it's not that.
That makes sense, yeah.
But I don't think it's that level of, it doesn't taste 8.2. It just tastes higher than what I thought it originally was.
Yeah. It's supposed to go really well with spicy food like Indian or Thai.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Hands down. It'd be amazing.
Bit of pad Thai in one of these. Nice.
Definitely. Is now a good time as well to sort of address the fact that we've both
we both got
enough
sediment.
to get sediment in ours. But the only reason I want to say it is because I think people get really nervous with sediment of like, oh my God, is something wrong with my beer, or has it been stored incorrectly?
No.
Can I drink it?
So the reason that we've got sediment in is because we did a pour and then we straightened up and then we poured again. So the sediment shifted and then got into that last bit. Like, it's just a bit of yeast. It's not going to kill you. This is also, they're unfiltered, unfined, unpasteurized, and they're going to have been bottle conditioned a bit. So that yeast is there to do a job. If you're worried, you can let it settle a little bit. Just don't drink the bottom of your glass. You'll be all right.
Yeah, just don't hard pour.
Yeah.
don't do what we did either.
Yeah. This is why. So this is why, like, with lambics, you've got those baskets. If you've ever seen the bottle, so you open it, and because they've got quite a bit of sediment in the bottle, you have to keep it on its side, so that stays at the bottom, and then you pour the beer off. If you straighten it up afterwards, that's when you get your sediment in.
See, I never knew that about them. So I always
around in the bottom.
I think there's a big debate about whether or not it's correct or not, but my understanding has always been, with the exception of like a few types of bottled beers, that typically ones that have corks in them, as a rule of thumb, you're not meant to necessarily lay beer on their sides because they get yeast rings or whatever else. But then it depends on who you ask, because then other people say, no, it's totally fine. It's just you have to pour it this way and you have to do that with it. So it's just really interesting. But I just thought I'd take the opportunity now, because I know just the other day on one of the forums, I saw somebody like, did I store it wrong? Did somebody else store it wrong? And it's like, no. just sediment, just a bit of yeast,
it'd be
like
fine.
it'll be okay. But I thought
As long
maybe
as you haven't got stringy bits or like massive chunks, you're fine.
Just saying that makes me feel ill. But yeah, I think
bits of yeast.
I thought maybe we could instill confidence in people. Like it's okay to drink it.
Well, I mean, there is a tradition in some countries of you pour a wheat beer and then you roll the bottle and you add the yeast back in on top. Some people quite like it because, yeast can be nutritional. It's
Delicacy.
not for everyone, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's for me.
It's not for everyone.
But I mean, I can handle like a little bit in my glass. But I don't think I can handle.
Adds to the wheaty
swirling it around and dumping it all back on again.
Whip it in the top.
Oh, any other interesting facts about this?
So while I was looking for information about Hopfenweisses, Cloudwater have done quite a few, it looks like. But I think American...
They always have slightly different, because they weren't all the ones that I saw weren't all called Hopfenweisse. They had slightly different names, and I was like, so I don't know if they are, and this is what made it really difficult to kind of find a few for our podcast, was because I was like, oh, the name's slightly different. How different is it?
It's very interesting, and it was quite difficult finding information and examples of Hopfenweisses when I was doing my research, because they are like when you look up this on Untapped, it comes up as a Weizen Doppelbock, not as a Hopfenweisse. There isn't a section for Hopfenweisses. They get separated up into all the other wheat beer styles. So even the Nacken, even though it very clearly says on the back of the can Hopfenweisse, it's down as a Hefeweizen on Untapped, because essentially your Hopfenweisse is a hoppy wheat beer. So it can be any kind of wheat beer with some hop chucked into it. Now, I mean, obviously not chucked into it. It's carefully measured and worked out how, within the recipe.
Close your eyes, pick up a handful, and go poof.
And the magic happens. But yeah, so it's a bit of a mystery of a style, because there can be various different ones that are actually within it, but essentially it's any wheat beer that's got a hop character to it.
And I love it because
it's very refreshing.
Wheat beers. I absolutely love wheat beers, and I love hoppy beers. So for me, I saw it and I was like, yeah, have to have that. And then I got it. I got it for you. I got the Siren one for you because I was just like, if nothing else, it's something different to try. And I was like, and it's on the polo, and the label on it's like textured.
Yes,
it's a nice textured label. So it's like, even if you don't fully love it, if it's got too much hops, you don't like it, at least you've tried something new.
I mean, I'm enjoying trying something new. I prefer a straight Weiss beer, to be honest, but I think it's still really interesting to try. And so, like, how can we stifle creativity? Like, beer is an art form. You can't turn around and tell people you can't experiment with it.
Yeah, like, who gets to decide? I guess that's the thing. It's like, well, who gets to decide? Like, even with the argument of like beer should taste like beer, right? Even if you take that argument, well, who gets to decide what beer
tastes like?
What beer tastes like for it to taste like beer? Like, who gets to say, I like this lager and I like this IPA, but when it hits this point, it's gone too far.
Right.
Like, who gets to have that final say? Because if not, everyone's going to have a slightly different thing over what crosses a line.
You can only say what you personally like. You can't like inflict that on other people.
No, and it's like, are people going to say like, oh, this is okay because it's a more traditional style where they've just added extra hops in, so therefore, there's no crazy adjuncts or anything in it, therefore this is okay, this experimentation is okay. But
put some jam donut in there.
The second you put jam donut in, that's it. So Jo, your career's done because you made a jam donut.
Yeah, I've done it. I've hit the pinnacle. I'm done.
But yeah, I quite like this, and I think that like it just makes me wish that I were on holiday right now.
It is like you want to be in like a really nice hot beer garden with some lovely leafy trees. I want some pretzels.
I want to be somewhere like with warm pretzels, soft warm pretzels. That would be amazing. I mean, instead, it's cooled down, which is really, really great. But instead, I'm just in oppressive heat in England, which who would have thought?
Right.
Who would have
This
been
is it
like
though. This is our summer. Once this is done,
30
it's gone.
degrees, which is, your 30s, which is like for people in the US around like 80s sort of region. People back in the US were like, isn't it supposed to be raining? And I was like, guys, it doesn't rain here all the time.
Supposed to rain at the weekend, which I'm slightly annoyed about.
I was like, all right, stereotypes, like,
Yeah.
come on. It doesn't rain
Let me
here all
get
the
my
time.
teacup out.
But yeah, that's my favorite is when people come over from the US, like instantly people over there like, do you want some tea? And my husband's like, I drink coffee.
I'm the same. They always like they're like, do you want tea? I'm like, no.
It's
I want a coffee,
it's all
thanks.
well-meaning, but the amount of times I have to say like, no, we don't. It's not. It is more 50-50 between rain and not rain. Like
Yeah.
we do get a lot of not rain, but oh my god, we don't normally get this many days in a row of like 80s with no wind, just heat.
Climate change is a thing, y'all.
Exactly, but at least we've got this gorgeous creation because it's really nice. So back with some Nacken
from Tori's faves, Siren
and Omnipolo.
And Omnipolo, yeah.
I do like a good bit of Omnipolo as well. So
I think there's a good story behind this, isn't there?
Yeah, there is actually. So it's a rebrew. This is a rebrew. It's had numerous rebrews. So basically, the original one of these was done in October of 2013. So the whole reason it sort of came about was that Siren agreed to collaborate with Omnipolo, collaborate with Omnipolo and host a homebrew competition for Swedish homebrewers, which I thought already was quite interesting because like I feel like every time a beer's like, I would have thought they'd have been like, we're hosting a homebrew competition in the UK because we're brewing it in the UK. So I found it really interesting that they were like, no, Swedish homebrewers. You don't hear a lot about Swedish homebrewers.
Yeah, have they got a big base in Sweden? Do they export a lot to Sweden?
Well, I don't know. Not
Why don't you know? You know everything about Siren, for goodness sake.
I imagine it was just because it was Omnipolo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily their base. I think it's more Omnipolo's sort of base. So basically they hosted a homebrew competition for Swedish homebrewers. The prize was to basically the winner got to come with Henok and Carl over to the UK to brew a Siren. Can you hear the plane?
No, you're okay. No, you're fine. No, I can't actually.
Leave this one in because I want the people to know that this is live. It is real. It is happening. I am over a flight path. Great. So what they did is they sort of they had this competition, and the way it worked out was that basically Omnipolo would narrow it down to 6 people or 6 finalists. Mm-hmm. Then they packaged up the beers and they sent it across to Siren and said, here you go, here's a 6, choose your winner. And then what I thought was really interesting was Siren picked the winner, but they did it with the help of Thornbridge.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting.
Share and share alike.
2 people from Thornbridge sort of like came and helped.
Impartial judges.
Yeah, no, but I thought that was like really brilliant, really interesting because I was like, oh, it's an Omnipolo Siren collab, and then all of a sudden, like, Thornbridge came and helped, and effectively the winner of that first competition was Rick Gordon Lundquist. I think that's how you say the name, and I'm only basing that off the fact that there's an ice hockey player with a similar surname, and basically he won for his hobby Hopfenweisse. So nice. So I'm gonna, before I say anything else, I'm gonna crack it open. I want to drink it because I am parched. I love that sound of like that.
I got a little glass for this one.
Oh, see, I treated mine like royalty.
Oh, well done.
Put mine in the Hocus Pocus glass. So
mine's very yellow.
I was going to say it still has that very like wheat beer, hazy yellow colour. that goldeny yellow color. And the head is more like, I don't know if you can sort of see that in the camera or if it's not really working properly.
Yeah.
It's not as firm as
it's
the
not
other
as
one.
thick. It's more
More bubbly, like
yeah, it's
soapy
more
bubbly.
bubbly. Yeah, like soap bubbles, and they're disappearing.
And
Yeah,
it does
it's not.
smell more banana-y. Like it, I think it smells a bit more, for me, it smells a bit more traditional wheat beer than the other one did.
No,
I got
see,
more
the other
sweeter
one.
fruit.
No, the other one was more traditional wheat beer to me, and this is very hoppy. In fact, I'm getting a bit of lemon, and I'm getting a bit of vegetal off of it.
See, I'm getting banana quite a bit in this. But I am getting like a little bit of lemon. Like I've got a little bit of lemon coming in there, but I don't get that same hoppiness that you get. And this is
I'm
why it's
getting a
like
lot
really,
hoppy.
I think it's really interesting how everyone has a little bit different view on it.
Yeah.
Because I felt that other one smelled a bit sweeter, at least to start, but then I
The
feel
other
like the
one
smell kind of
smells.
changes.
Yeah, the other one smelled sweeter. I'm getting a bit of like spicy German hop on this one as well. Do we know what hops are in it?
Oh, I could see that.
It doesn't say on the label.
No, it doesn't say. It just says tops. I'll go through differences. There was a few different brews of
Yeah.
this one. So I'll go through that in a minute. But yeah, it was.
Have you drunk yours yet? Are you going in?
No,
I'm going
no.
in.
Let's go in.
Let's go in.
It's thinner, I think, as
Yeah.
well. Like thinner mouthfeel,
thinner.
not in a bad way, but just thinner and
Drier.
I think it's more bitter as well.
Oh, I don't think it's more bitter.
It's more bitter for me.
I think it's less bitter. It's less interesting, which is like not in a bad way. Like it's very refreshing. But there's a lot more going on in my glass in the Schneider than there is in this one. It's more complex. This one's more complex and there's more bits to pick out, whereas this is just very refreshing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But I do see, like for me, I agree with you on the dryness. This is definitely more dry, but for me, this one's more bitter than the others, than the other one is. I do think though, I get a bit of orange in that sip right there. And I do get a bit. So this one, in case anyone's interested, is 6.9%. And I actually feel like
I get a bit of grapefruit.
Yeah, I can see that. I think this one tastes boozier for 6.9 than that one did for the 8.2 or whatever it was.
I think this tastes more like a New England IPA or an IPA, like, and this set tastes more like if you chuck this in front of somebody, I don't think they'd go, oh, that's that's an interesting style. I think like this is a hoppy wheat beer.
I would agree. It tastes more IPA.
Yeah,
but I would disagree with the New England IPA.
Now you're just being like picky about which style. It's like
I'm well versed in my New England IPAs.
If you stuck this in front of me and was just like, this is a new beer style, this is a different beer style, I'd be like, is it? That's not to say it's a bad beer. It's just not as interesting to me as the Schneider and.
I'm just trying to take in to say if I would think that it was different, or if someone said, here's a new beer style, here is a bit different, would I think it was a bit different? I don't know. I think there is an element of like it almost tastes like, for how it tastes in terms of an IPA, it's sort of got it tastes like it's a mishmash of different types of IPAs. So like maybe I would believe that it was like a new type of IPA that they've come up with. Would I think it was like a wheat beer? Probably not, actually.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not getting wheat from it at all.
No.
I'm getting hoppy beer. So I think in
for
this
me, it
one,
smelled more wheaty for me than it tasted. I know you didn't get that, but
no,
I
didn't even get that. So I think that it's a hoppy beer is what I get from it. That's not a bad thing.
No.
It's just not what I was expecting.
Especially, I think, after you've just had
I've just had this one, which is like everything that's going on in this glass.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I do think that is quite refreshing. It's like I think in the heat, like it doesn't make me think I'm on holiday in Europe by any means, but I do feel like it's a sit outside and drink it in the heat.
Definitely.
and it's that perfect for me. It's the perfect ABV percentage. It just tastes a bit boozier than what I would expect for that percentage, I think.
They are wildly
phenols
different
right.
beers, I think.
They are definitely wildly
Yeah.
different beers. But then I also think the Cloudwater was very different from either. From what I remember, the Cloudwater was wildly different to both of those as well. So
I think Hopfenweisses are just little islands all of their own.
I think they're so uncommon as well.
Yeah.
At this point, they're so uncommon that everyone is just experimenting and everyone is just kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah. And why not?
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think
around, see what delicious nonsense you can put in a can.
But I think the more common a certain style becomes, the more you have that baseline level of like those what you expect, and then you have some outliers within that of people being experimental with
those
it,
predefined ideas about what you're expecting in your glass. And that can be really useful if you're trying to work out what you like, and you want to make sure that you buy something that you're going to like. It's really useful to know those things. But if you just want to try something and see, be experimental, see what it is, see if you like it, then something a bit more like this.
So I thought it was quite interesting as well. So basically, going back to the I basically sort of summarized up this article, this blog post from Siren about this original beer from 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And thought it was interesting that they effectively, this guy won. He came over with Henok and Carl. They went to go brew. I think they said it was, a few months down the line. Basically, they'd come over and they started brewing. They said basically, I'm going to read the bit because I can't really do it justice summarizing it. So here's what it says. So fast forward to August, and the three arrived nice and early for mash in at the brewery, and all was not well. The wheat malt that hadn't arrived the previous day had still not arrived. A few calculations were made, as this was to be a double batch brew, and we kicked off with a few small changes. After that, it was a pretty straightforward day, punctuated by lots of sharing and tasting of beers, as you do. I feel like that's probably the most key part of doing a collab.
You got to bring something. You got to bring some beer to the table to share.
Yeah.
For once you've cleaned out that Lorty ton, got all the grain out.
How unfortunate is that it's like, the wheat that we needed didn't arrive yesterday, and it still hadn't arrived. And can you imagine you're hosting these three people, one of which won a competition? It must be so stressful. Like I can't even imagine. But at least that was kind of like, it didn't start great, but it sounded like it ended pretty good. So I thought I'd share that little bit, but I was like, I can't summarize that because I've just got to read that from exactly how it is. So the name of the beer itself, Nacken, that is effectively named after a Swedish siren. This image right here, if you're looking at the camera, so that it comes from an artwork of a Swedish Nacken.
It's a face.
Yes, and it's doing ooh face.
Yeah. And there's like, and it's got quite. It looks like it's got like a hairy beard, long hair, and then there's fish kind of woven in between like the hair and the in the fingers of the hand. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I would, and it's textured, which I quite like. Yes. I'd say it's kind of like a King Trident-esque type artwork with his little face, which is it's just really cool. I'm holding up to the camera if you're watching the video.
Yeah.
But that is basically the artwork of a Swedish Nacken, and the whole thing is it lures people into the water by playing its flute. And Siren made sure to make a note that oftentimes he's naked. So I thought I would add that in because it's obviously very important.
He lives in the sea, in the ocean, obviously. So what would you need clothes for?
Clothes, like, come on.
What would you need clothes for?
Yeah, they sort of originally released it into bottles, and here it is in a can. And I think the last time that we went to the tap yard when you were here, I believe they actually still had some.
Yes, I think they did.
But I went and I looked on their website and it's not there anymore. But I don't know if that's because it's sort of taproom exclusive, because they were down to sort of the last few cans.
Yeah.
Got this one back, and I think I checked my emails and this one was released back in January. So I got it the end of January, sort of beginning of Feb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought the one last thing that I'd sort of say is there's kind of 4 iterations of it. So the first one they did, which the original one, that was a 6.4%. That was just Nacken. That was the original one that they brewed as part of, you know, that contest, that the winners beer effectively. Then from what I can tell, in 2015, now the dates could be wrong, but I've just basically kind of googled all these to see sort of when it's come out. They've released a barrel aged Nacken, which is a 7.4%. It's listed on Untapped as an American wild ale, but from what I could find on old blog posts, it is Nacken, and what they've done is they've fermented it in Chardonnay casks with wild yeast. And I was like, oh my god, that sounds amazing. And it was part of like a 4 barrel aged release series. One of the other ones was Shattered Dream that they did. So yeah, I bet that was amazing. Yeah, they have different types of barrels, and this one went in the Chardonnay barrel, which I can understand why. Having tasted, it's got that dryness. It's just got that vinous sort of element to it from that dryness that I could see a Chardonnay barrel probably quite good. But it sounded like it was probably amazing. And yeah, I genuinely wish that I had one of those, because that sounds really good. If I get a time machine, go back to 2015, get a few of those bottles and cellar them in my in my cupboard. Then the third one that came out was Nacken 2.0. So that was 7.8%. I trawled everywhere I could sort of through the internet to find out when it was released and all that, and what it actually seems like was this one was released last year, October 2020. Now that could be wrong, but that's just what seemed to be what I found. And that one it specifically mentioned that it was made with Pilsner malt, and the hops were Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra and Galaxy hops. And it seemed that they brewed this one, it was brewed by a North Carolina brewery in the US called Casita Brewing Co, which is probably why I didn't know it had been, I hadn't seen a 2.0 release, because I don't think it was over here from what I can understand. And it seems like from that point on, Casita's mentioned as well. So the Lindquist, he seems to have, it's like, oh, he's the one that sort of inspired it, but he's no longer sort of mentioned as the collab as such, as much as it is Siren, Omnipolo and Casita. So what I'm thinking is they might have done sort of a bit of a tweak to the recipe after speaking to the US brewery, and then maybe kind of now what's there is this weird hybrid that's continually evolved, which I thought was quite interesting, because where it leaves us with now is Nacken 2021 with 6.9%. The one that we have, obviously, that'll go in January. And then, I just thought that was quite interesting to see how it's evolved into so many. It's kind of, you had the original homebrew that then made it into being the beer that won, and that they've put out there, then a barrel aged, then they've gone, okay, it's going to go over to the US now, and then it's come back and there's another person putting input into it, and it's be interesting to see if they rebrew it again and see what that one's like. So I would definitely try it again to see what the next iteration of it is, but I'm really keen to try more of these.
I think if I saw more Hopfenweisses, I'd definitely grab them and give them a go.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, this is our last one, because we
can only get 2.
Really struggled to find more. So we've only done 2 tonight.
I think we were really lucky to find like the original in Ansbach Hob Day. Seriously, people, go to Ansbach Hob Day.
So
they
brilliant.
Have a great selection of traditional beers.
I've just ordered their collaboration with Elusive, because I just got my early release email saying you can order them.
I want the black IPA.
So yeah, I just ordered it. I mean, if you want to put an order and I can pick it up for you.
I mean, maybe.
It's like a good bit Ansbach. But what I quite liked about Ansbach, and I'm sure we'll probably mention this when we do our episode that we're not going to talk about now, but I found it quite interesting how much they had some really traditional, and not just trad UK styles, but traditional European styles. Like they had so much offering from that traditional sense, but also they had like so many craft offerings as well in their fridges. So I just thought that was really interesting, because you don't get, I think Fallen Acorn's another one that does that quite well, which bridges the gap between trad and experimental. Because I think for me, I consider it all craft if it's made in a particular way. It can be a traditional style and still be craft, but
Yeah.
I think that's why I choose to say experimental. But yeah, it's I think we are lucky to have tried that one and to find out that was like the first one.
Yeah, I was just like, and it was like, this is the first one. I was like, is that the one we've got in the fridge? Let me go and look. Yes, it is.
That was brilliant. You were like, I've got some really interesting facts on it. I was like, don't tell me. Like, don't spoiler alert.
I want to be surprised.
Oh, well, with that, shall we wrap things up for tonight? I feel like we've done quite a few long episodes recently.
Yeah.
We should give people a break.
We'll give you
them a short one for us.
Yeah. If people want to talk to you about, I don't know, hoppy beers.
Oh yeah, I could talk about hoppy beers all day long.
Where
so if
can
you want
they
to talk to
find
me,
you?
want to talk to me about hoppy beers or naked men that lure people into the ocean with flutes, you can find me. Yeah, that's a fun topic. You can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. If people want to talk to you about less hoppy beers but more wheat beers, where can they find you?
You can talk to me about wheat beers. You can talk to me about any style. My personal account is A Woman's Brew on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Particularly if you would like to talk about different beer styles, come, join me at Love Beer Learning, my beer school. I mostly hang out on Instagram as Love Beer Learning. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Pinterest. We also have a website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk, and we will pick up emails at lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. That'll be for the podcast as well. We particularly look at beer styles in my beer membership, the Beer Tent Society. We do a different beer style every month. But if you just want to come, she's in it. She's there. Come join us. It's very exciting. We have a good time tasting.
Sometimes
I'm late.
Beers. Sometimes I cut out early, but I'm always there at least for a little bit.
Always there. Yeah. And if you just want to learn about beer and beer tasting, build your beer vocabulary. The next round of that will be September. So join the wait list so you can get information about when that starts.
Nice.
That's all that information is on the website and through the links in bio on Instagram. Come and join us and learn some more about beer with us.
Yeah, and I think we've got some really exciting episodes. There's one in particular that we just recorded, and if you follow us on Instagram, you're going to know exactly what it is. If you don't follow us on Instagram, I mean, that's a huge problem. That's fine. I mean, I don't want to follow me either. It's fine. But it's one that I am particularly
if you don't follow
exciting
us,
and braggy about,
then you don't get to see our exciting exclusive pictures.
I feel like this one that we did recently, like I feel personally I've just peaked, and I'm like, where do I go from there?
We're really building this up now.
We start talking like, oh, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
I think it's a build up. I think it's a fair build up.
Yeah.
So yeah, and obviously we've just had Mothership. We've just had Mothership. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
And really excited at some of the stuff that's coming out. So keep listening and definitely let us know if there's anything in particular that you want to listen to, and we'll do our best to make it happen, or who you want us to interview or whatever else. So
yeah, we can make it happen.
Cool. On that note, Jo, let's go get oppressively warm.
Cheers.